And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about support fund program changes that are going to be forthcoming in the upcoming funding cycle. I would start by saying that the support fund is much broader in scope than what Mike's been talking about. It is not just STEM, and it's not just research. We do all kinds of things through the support fund. So if you're not in STEM, this is the part of the presentation for you. But we are sharing a couple of themes with the federal side of the equation. The first is strategic investment. The funds in the support fund are public monies. They have to serve a public purpose, and I'll get in a second to what our goals are as set forth by the Constitution, but also impact. We're really focusing on how we can get the biggest bang for our buck in terms of the things that the support fund is intended to accomplish. So those two themes are common among the federal programs and the state programs. So first, the support fund, as most of you know, is established in the Constitution. It was established in 1986, and we are given two goals in the Constitution: to improve the quality of higher ed and to enhance economic development in Louisiana. Those are the things that we are charged to accomplish. And we can do that by spending the money that we have available in any or all of the following categories: carefully defined research efforts, endowment of chair surrounding scholars, the enhancement of the quality of academic research or agricultural departments or units, and recruitment of superior graduate students. Two important points here. Any or all, we are not charged with doing all of these things at once unless we want to. We have always chosen to do to take all of these actions, but that is not what the Constitution requires. The second is, you'll notice everything up there is academic and research. We don't do sports, we don't do services, we don't do recreation. We are solely about the academic mission of the university as it relates to the quality of education and economic development. So why are we looking at revising these programs now? First, we are 30 years old. We just gave out our 30th round of funding 2 weeks ago. So it's long overdue. We've always had the same basic structure with the same basic programs. And then onto those basic programs, we layered several new initiatives over time that spoke to urgent issues, new opportunities that emerged over time. We've never looked holistically at the support fund until now to see whether we're doing the right things and how these things are accomplishing our chief goals. The support fund circumstances have changed. I'm going to get to some detail in a minute. We have a lot more activities. Everything costs more. We have a multitude of sub-programs now. We're up to 15 sub-programs, and we have a lower income. Higher ed's changing. I really don't need to tell any of you this. We have declining state funding, greater demand for productivity and impact. It's important to remember with the support fund that we are actually controlled by the Board of Regents, but also by the legislature. Our plan and budget goes annually to the legislature, and we're answerable to the legislature and the governor for the way that we budget our funds and the way that our funds are expended in higher ed. So that the statewide conversation about higher ed impacts on the support fund, whether we want it to or not. And also we need to align with defined priorities. Over the last, 17 years that I've been at the Board of Regents, at every level, campus level, system level, state level, regents have developed strategic plans, master plans, directional documents to define our priorities, to figure out how the state can move forward in higher ed. And the support fund is intended to be supplementary and enhancing, and we have less money than ever, so we need to align with the things that our campuses, our systems, and our state have determined are the highest priorities for Louisiana. This is just a dramatic illustration of how the circumstances in the support fund have changed. Back in 2006, 2007, about 10 years ago, we were getting $35 million that we could use to fund projects in higher ed in Louisiana. We now are getting about 20. Our current budget estimate for this year, for the current year, is 20.6. If Treasury is to be believed, next year we will be down to 16.5 So we're at about a little less than half of the funding that we've received in the past. So it's very important that we figure out ways to target these dollars better. We can no longer be all things to all people because we simply can't afford it. So with this in mind, we undertook a very extensive process last summer, last fall, to look at possible restructuring of the support fund, what kind of changes should happen in the support fund. To do this, we had extensive meetings with advisory committees that were open to the public. We sent out several drafts across campuses and across systems and other stakeholders to make sure that what we were doing, that we understood the impact of what we were doing. And this is the result approved by the board in November of 2016. First, all of our investments will be aligned with the Board of Regents' focus, which is educate and innovate. This is really not a change. This is what we do anyway. This is economic development and the quality of higher education. And also, we are going to align with state system and campus strategic priorities, which means as your campus has developed its strategic plans and its strategic directions, we want to align with those. We want to understand how our funding is helping to support the campus's well-scoped mission and strategic priorities. We're replacing a large number of small and highly specific programs, many of which have fairly limited impacts, with fewer programs. This doesn't mean the kinds of funding in the eliminated programs is going away. It simply means that we're looking to you to prioritize what you need in a broader context. We're adding a workforce emphasis across all support fund programs. If you follow the conversation about higher ed, not only within the state, but nationally, you know that this is inevitable. We're replacing the individual faculty-driven enhancement grants with competitive funding at the department level. Again, this is an attempt to be strategic, to figure out how best to support the real needs of the institution and the departments. This also aligns much better with our constitutional authority, which is to support academic, research, and agricultural departments and units. And I'm going to speak in a little more detail about the enhancement changes in a minute. We're increasing, to the extent that we have resources available, support for innovation in the marketplace. This is our ITRS program and our POCP, Proof of Concept and Prototyping program. As there are funds available, we will attempt to put more money in those categories because that is so important to the innovation piece of the support fund's mission. We're broadening impact by requiring participation in support fund opportunities by students at any level. A lot of projects already have this kind of participation, but we are now going to require it, ask you to tell us for any project how this will affect the students at your institution. By the way, I see lots of you taking pictures of the slides. That's absolutely fine. We are also happy to share this presentation. It will be on this computer when we leave, so you can copy it off. And I've left business cards with the staff, and you're welcome to contact me directly to get a copy. Okay. Yes. Finally, if you have a contract that's already in place, something you've already signed, or a pending contract that you're working on right now, or a grad fellows contract that starts next year, that starts in August of 18, we have allowed for all of those things to be completed at the funding level approved. So if you have an existing contract, don't worry, it's still there, regardless of the changes. So I want to just talk a little bit about the effect on our competitive programs. I want to leave plenty of time for questions. So there are two programs that are being substantially revised. Enhancement I'll describe in a little bit of detail, and now chairs I'll just run through briefly because these are really administrative changes for chairs. So for enhancement, departmental projects with comprehensive and targeted options. There's a draft RFP, draft program design that's circulating that you may see. This program will be open to all formally constituted departments, units, centers. Basically, any formally constituted academic entity is eligible to compete on its own for enhancement funds, which means that this center, the Light Center, can compete as an academic entity. It doesn't have to compete as part of its academic department or the assignment of the faculty members. And finally, we'll continue to have a discipline rotation. This is pure math. We cannot afford to look at all disciplines in all years. We have everything externally reviewed. That's very expensive. And also, when you split up the funds across so many disciplines, that leaves not enough funding for any given discipline. So we are continuing with the rotation, but it's going to be 2 cycles rather than 3. So 1 year on, 1 year off for everyone. Just quickly, endowed chairs, we are adding an emphasis on the need for the chair and the alignment with role, scope, mission, and priorities. We are dividing the chairs explicitly into 4 types. A research chair, in which the primary expectation is high-level research, an education chair, in which the primary expectation is teaching, training, and so forth. Workforce development, which is a focus on workforce development, and a combination, which is really an equal division among any of those former or those previous 3. And finally, we're instituting a requirement that an application for a new chair, this doesn't affect anything that went before, that application demonstrate that appropriate resources are in place. When we fund a chair, that's $400,000 out of the support fund budget. We want to make sure that when we provide that $400,000, the campus is ready to use it. The campus is ready to put that chair to work. Because the value in a chair for our goals, which are the quality of education and economic development, the value in a chair is the person who's sitting in it. We don't get much value from chairs that sit vacant. So the Departmental Enhancement Program, what's our tentative program design? Some of you may have seen the draft that we sent out around April 20th. We are currently receiving comments on that draft. They're due actually tomorrow. So anything we have by close of business tomorrow, we will take into consideration. We are aligning with the objectives in the Constitution through 2 award types. Comprehensive, which is a holistic departmental approach, which means if your academic unit has a series of things it needs to move forward in a specific area, to establish a new focus area, to boost your capacity, boost your abilities in a certain area, you can submit a comprehensive proposal, which will envelop all of those activities in a holistic approach. We are also maintaining the sort of focused approach we have now, which is if you need one piece of equipment to move the department forward in a certain area, if you need something very focused or targeted, you can apply and target it. With the comprehensive, they're up to 5 years, and they're larger awards with a maximum of $500,000. With the targeted, they're smaller awards and they're limited to 1 year. 3 categories by primary contribution. This is really to help us understand what kind of outcomes our consultants should be looking for. When they read your proposal, the outcomes for a research project, the outcomes for education, the outcomes for workforce are very different. So we are going to have you identify what the primary contribution of the project is intended to be. This doesn't mean that it is the sole contribution, that you can't have a research project that has educational impacts or vice versa. It simply means what's the primary thing you expect to have at the end of the project. We do not define priority areas. This has been a misunderstanding of the way that we've gone about restructuring the support fund. We don't tell you that certain priority areas are not eligible. We don't tell you that we are STEM only. What we say is you show us how this project is aligned with campus role, scope, mission, and strategic priorities. Everything is still eligible. There's still humanities, arts, social sciences projects, perfectly eligible for the support fund. It's the alignment that's key, and that comes from you, not from us. Broad eligibility for activities. Basically, this is where we've always come from in enhancement. Anything that you can convincingly argue enhances the infrastructure of your department is eligible, with some restrictions like we don't buy basic furniture, we don't buy basic desktops. The things that the campus should provide are still going to be ineligible. We can't buy cars, things like that. But pretty much anything that's enhancing to your mission would be eligible under this program. And finally, as with our current program, we are really interested in impact. How are we going to measure the success of your project? What are you going to bring to the state as a result of the state funding this project? That's really what the board wants to see. That's what the legislature wants to see, is that these monies are well invested and actually generate something for the benefit of the state. And for those of you who do equipment projects, one thing we do see a lot in these projects that we'd like to get away from is this idea that if it's an equipment project and you bought the equipment, that's your measure of success. Ordering it, installing it, and paying for it is the measure of success. It's not. What we want to see is, what does that equipment do for you? Does it allow you to train more students? Does it allow you to enter a research area that you're currently not in? Does it allow you to be more competitive in a research area? Does it allow you to corner the market in a certain technology in Louisiana? I mean, one of the really interesting things, if you look at this year's consultant reports, CAMD did very well in part because they were asking for some support for a light source. Well, CAMD is one of the few educational institutions that actually maintains its own light source, not in Louisiana, but nationally. That's very impressive, that's great, and that's a really important enhancement to what they do. So think in those kinds of terms when you think about the impact your project will have. Endowed chairs, I'm going to blow through these really quickly. They're really going to be of interest to the academic leadership and not so much to individual faculty. We sent out a draft on April 14th. Responses were due by last Friday. We received very few comments on this. We are endowing chairs for eminent scholars at $1 million or above. All of our chairs, the base funding level is $1 million. We are switching to 4 endowment types. We've had this primarily research, primarily education thing for a while. We're switching to research, educational, workforce, and a combination, which is an equal part of any of those previous 3. The minimum corpus remains $1 million, but we are strongly recommending in resource-intensive programs like science, tech, engineering, and business that you consider higher levels of endowment. $1 million chair just does not go very far anymore. Proposals have to document that the package of resources is sufficient. Again, all disciplines are eligible with alignment to role, scope, and mission. And we did implement previous policy changes also in November of 2016 that emphasize revenue expenditure. The most important thing with these chairs, as I said earlier, is that they be filled and used, because they're of no academic value, they're of no economic development value if they're sitting idle. So the regents are very concerned that these chairs get filled, stay filled with the right kind of faculty. Other programs, very important. Graduate fellowships will no longer be supported through the support fund. This program has been suspended. Both the traditional graduate fellowships and the SREB fellowships, which provide funds for fellowship support to the students, as well as membership in SREB's Doctoral Scholars Program. All of those have been suspended. That does not mean that there is no funding for graduate students. There are 2 sources of funds remaining for graduate students in the support fund. One is Superior Graduate Student Scholarships, which is a matching program, minimum of $100,000, $60,000 non-state match for $40,000 state. This is an attempt to give some permanent support for graduate studies on your campuses. An endowed fund is there forever and generating money, we hope, forever. And also departmental enhancement. If what your department really needs is 4 or 5 graduate students for one thing or another, whether it's a research assistantship, whether it's fellowship support, whether it's minority student support, those can all be requested in departmental enhancement. In addition, there will be an RFP providing limited support to continue our participation in the Doctoral Scholars Program through SREB. That'll be a separate RFP from traditional enhancement, and it'll run through the graduate schools as it has previously. And second, we are eliminating first-generation endowed undergraduate scholarships. These were small, $100,000 at the 4-year campuses, $50,000 at the 2-year campuses to support students who had need. And it was a wonderful idea, and it was well-intentioned, but the resources that we put into the program don't really generate the kind of benefit that we want. It generates a very small amount for the students. So we are looking to other programs which provide better support, like the two-year workforce scholarships program and departmental enhancement, which would give you some opportunities in that area. And finally, retain with minimal changes. This will be happy to hear. There are some things that aren't really changing very much. RCS is not changing much. ITRS and POCP, except we'd like to put more money in them, are not changing much. Atlas is not changing. And then endowed two-year workforce scholarships and endowed superior graduate student scholarships are remaining largely as is. So that means the new structure of the support fund looks like this. We have the foundational support and enhancement, which is really to provide a broad base for the other activities that go up the pyramid. So things like departmental enhancement, professorships, and scholarship endowments, and all the money that Mike talked about that the state has given to the export programs has come from the support fund. So that federal matching piece is very important in enhancement. Next, research and development, we're retaining most of those programs as is, and those are a little more focused, a little more targeted. In graduate fellows, we will continue to endow graduate scholarships as well as support fellowship, scholarship, assistantship requests through enhancement and R&D. And finally, endowed chairs, which is really to support the game-changing faculty on campus with these very large endowments, where we want to see our investments matched with an investment from the campus in appointing these chairs and keeping them filled. So with that, we do expect to release RFPs for all of our programs in July 2017. So if you're interested, start looking on the website, webvalleyregents.org, for the updated RFPs. We'll have them up as close to the 1st of July as we can. And also our website has a wealth of information about our programs, about past funded projects. You can look at consultant reports. You can request copies of proposals. All of those things are available to you through our office. And as I said, I've left some business cards. If you need to get in touch with me or any of the staff and sponsored programs, we'll be happy to help. Now, I'd like to open it up to questions.